Our first one is the ever reliable Konami Korner Award for video game people being trash. Previous winners in this category: 2015, Konami in general; 2016, Oculus Rift, Palmer is a fascist, the other guy's a paedophile; 2017, Star Wars Battlefront 2 / NeoGAF guy is a creep; 2018, Telltale Games mismanagement leads to studio closure; 2019, the Blizzard Hong Kong debacle. It's worth saying this year that we've kind of taken a slightly different tack with this, where we were noticing a particular theme in a lot of our nominations, and we have removed actual crimes from this list for the most part, because it was getting real grim. And we don't want to kick off a year-end celebration. We want to, we want to stick the brogue in, all right. But talking about absolute monsters, would start us off on a little bit of a negative footing. So we've tried to do something a little different this year. We'll see how it goes.
Also, do we want to say that we're not going to mention CD Projekt Red because they missed the December cutoff point?
Lucky bastards.
In terms of what's been happening in the last 2 weeks for CD Projekt Red, they would absolutely be in this category. I mean, they're going to get a little bit of an honourable mention in one of the bullet points, but my word, would they be getting hammered.
They are the big dishonourable mention that might win this at a canter had the game come out later. But at the rate things are going, it might still be on fire this time next year and be in the contention for this in 2021 as well. I suppose, we'll talk about our dishonorable mention before we get into the nominees here. Barry, as a man who has been trying to actually play this game, how has the whole CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk 2077 experience been for you?
Oh, well, I've had to be kind of like enjoying it in like 45-minute increments because the game keeps like hard crashing the PS5 back to the home screen. So I certainly can't say I've been binging it, but it's been a bit of a disaster. Just, big. And so, I'm playing I'll make sure I get this right because it's clear as mud. I'm playing the PS4 version via backwards compatibility on PS5.
Yeah. Because the actual PS5 version isn't out.
No, and it doesn't have a release date. Yeah, they have said free update for the new consoles, but no date. So my experience hasn't been as horrible as people playing on actual old consoles because with just through the sheer horsepower of backwards compatibility, it does have 60 frames a second, and it doesn't have that like bizarre 20 seconds for textures to pop in that the console seem to have, which is just laughable. But beyond those two saving graces, I mean, it's a buggy mess, some of which is funny, and then some of which is just kind of like really, really irritating. Like, it has kind of amusing open world jank where characters are talking to each other, but one of them is like facing the wall or clipping through the wall, or animations aren't playing properly, or people are sitting on thin air. And there's a lot of those. I mean, literally every couple of minutes you turn a corner, you're seeing a new one. But there's also been tons of game-breaking things. I've had tutorials or item descriptions pop up on screen at the correct moment, but then it just stays there. I've had to reload a couple of times because there's a tutorial text box a quarter of the size of the screen, taking up the screen, and it won't move. I've had game crashes, and behind all that, once you get away from the crashes, away from the glitches, away from the stutters, away from all the problems, I'm also just finding it to be a not especially fun game to play. In this award for general video game trash, I think it would be a certified banger of a lock for disappointment of the year if it made the cutoff. And I'm someone who was not even super hyped for it. I liked but didn't love The Witcher. I'm not a CD Projekt guy at all, but just by virtue of what the game is, and it's the thing people wouldn't shut up about for the last 5 years, it's a mess. And you'll kind of notice there I didn't mention it in my holiday plans of sitting on my arse playing video games for 2 weeks. I'm sure I'll get to more of it, but like I said, when it's fully crashing to the point I have to start again, I'm like, okay, this is not even worth gritting my teeth and trying to power through. It's just not worth the efforts. So a huge dishonorable mention. We in the weeks leading up to this game, because I know, Jack, you had said this as well, like, if it's after the cutoff point, like, if we're all 10, 12 hours into it and we think it's a banger, should we make an exception? And it turns out they've actually been saved by being after the cutoff, because the only mentions it would be getting are in the negative categories, because it's not
I'd be putting it in for a ham sandwich, because I think the gameplay is just a shooter. I think the aesthetic and stuff is interesting, and the story has been fine so far, but the gameplay, I don't know about you, Barry, I'm not using like the hacking and stuff that much. I'm just winning fights by gunning people down. And yeah, it's for everyone else, like you say, I'm playing same as you, PS5 backwards compatibility PS4. Looking at all of the glitches and just absolute horror shows that I've seen on all of the other platforms so far on Twitter, it would be in disappointment comfortably, I would say.
Mark, as somebody who is familiar and in some cases sympathetic to the work of people in community management in video games, how has it been watching the Cyberpunk fiasco unfold from the sidelines?
I mean, it was a disaster when you had the community manager person confirm for that person who's like, hey, can I book some holiday if this game coming out when you say, when it was back in November, and then 3-4 days later having to come back like, actually. So, just throughout this has been a shit show, and it's not even just that. I mean, it's just, some of the public statements, and today specifically, as of time of recording, some of the things we've seen from some of the execs talking about like, if you're having issues, go and get refunds, but not actually confirming with Sony and Microsoft that those refunds are actually eligible, which is then causing headaches for, like just brick and mortar stores, like taking your game back. Like there's no refund policies in place for that as far as I'm aware, or how that works. So that's causing those people headaches who are in no way deserving of the, I would imagine, vitriol and abuse that they're getting. So just across the board, this has been a bit of a disaster. And the thing on top of all of that both Barry and Jack have mentioned is that the game is just kind of okay at best at the moment, and I think that is not the most tragic thing at all, but it is, I think, maybe the thing that we need to kind of keep coming back to, that it's like, okay, maybe we'd be kind of like, all right, in 6 months' time, maybe this game will be what it was meant to be, and the reason that it came out at the end of 2020 and had to come out was for whatever contractual reasons, and it's very shady with some of the things they've done, but look, whatever, in 6 months' time, we can see that the game that we want to play is there, and we'll just wait till then. But kind of by the sounds of it, I'm not actually sure that game actually exists.
I think I'm just going to sit on it until I get my PS5. I'm not arse going through the process of getting a refund, because I do want to eventually play it. So whichever happens first, me getting a PS5 or the thing getting fixed. I will say I'm on PS4 Pro, so mine has been somewhere in between the disaster of vanilla PS4s and the slightly better experience that Jack and Barry have. I haven't had quite as many errors as a lot of people in the few hours I've played, but like there's still some nasty texture pops and some T-posing and a bunch of different shit like that. I do laugh every time I see that picture going around on Twitter of that guy who said his favourite bug so far was the man who was stuck out of his sunroof driving his car while T-posing with his arse out. So that gave me a chuckle at least. Our nominees for the Konami Korner Award this year are, it's a murderer's row here once again. We have Randy, Magician is like the fifth worst thing about him, Pitchford. We have Bobby Kottick's Relentless Greed. We have GameStop's TikTok competition for Black Friday work hours. Marvel Avengers marketing and reception. The Game Gear Micro. The Next Gen pre-order debacle. Boundless levels of crunch continue at developers worldwide. The Last of Us troll and critic shitstorm. The Call of Duty outrageous file sizes for updates, and 505's next gen plans for Control. So I have brought back, again, in the interest of fairness, I have brought back the Wheel of Doom that will decide who we go to first to start hacking away or talking about things on this list. And the person to kick us off on Game of the Year 2020 will be Jack Lazell.
Way, love it. Absolutely. That's why I'm here. Now I've got first. That's it. I make my point and I'm going to go. Right. Okay. There is some absolutely goddamn horrible shit in this category. Like, some stuff that makes me cringe, some stuff that makes me despair for humanity. There is one thing, however, on here that is extremely annoying. It is very unnecessary. It pissed me off a lot in the early part of the year, but it probably doesn't belong as one of the worst things that's happened this year. And to me, that is Call of Duty's outrageous file sizes. It's a bad thing. I mean, the new COD Black Ops is, I think, 133 gig on PS5, 136 on Xbox, so they haven't corrected that. And I think the regular version of Modern Warfare is 250 gigs on PC at the moment, which is insane. But I think on PC you have the option to maybe uninstall parts of the game and just play, say, like Warzone if you wanted to play Warzone. Whereas like on a base PlayStation, you can't. You have to install the whole Call of Duty shebang if you want to play just Warzone, which is insane. If I want to play a free game, it really should be a 20 or 30 gig file size. But yeah, amongst some fucking awful shit in here, and I know Barry will have a take on this, this is probably the weakest one, I think, of the early categories.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair. I was actually, as Dave was running down the categories, because I'd known the list, but as he was kind of listing it there, just right there on the audio, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really. I mean, it is terrible. I think there's a lot of conversations happening in the moment about, file sizes. They're getting so big. These, all these new consoles, they don't have enough memory. I think that's a fair conversation, but I sincerely think it's being exasperated by one outlier, and it's Call of Duty. It's the Call of Duty games are out of control. Watch Dogs Legion, with its giant, gorgeous London and all its ray-traced puddles, is 30 gigs. Yep. It's 30 gigs for the whole game. And I tried a separate counterpoint, horrendous UI to try and find just Warzone on the PS5. Oh my god, I have to download Call of Duty Modern Warfare Data Pack 4 to get it. It's complete nonsense. So I eventually figured out how to download just Warzone on the very limited space on my PS5, and just Warzone is 113 gigs. It's what is it? 2 maps now? 2 maps and like 2 game modes. Like it's
I didn't know you could get just Warzone for the newest one. Obviously, for the previous incarnation of Modern Warfare, you couldn't. But Barry, the complete file size of Call of Duty Black Ops is 133. So you're telling me they only shaved 20 gigs off if you just want to play Warzone? They had a whole year to sort it out and they shaved off 20 fucking gigs? It's
bonkers. It really is.
I think to bring back to the point there, though, because I agree with some of the sentiment, but on the flip side, the fact that Call of Duty is the only game that looks like this, that is this size, does make it that much worse. That, like, okay, why are you the only game that has this issue? Like, you've been doing this for a while now, you've had prior games that haven't been this fucking bad. Why is this the one that seems to be just so outrageously excessive?
Do you know what I think part of it is? Because this was something that was happening at the end of last gen as well, and once developers had fully moved on to dev kits for the next gen, things started to calm down a little bit on the file size situation for a while. Part of me wonders, is it that because there's such a long, the way they do the studio trade-off thing for Call of Duty, where it's like they do it in 3-year cycles. Part of me thinks, was this like them trying to get the most out of a PS4 and sacrificing an enormous amount of space in the file size to do so, and hopefully when they're just making the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X SKUs of it a year or two from now, that it will not sort itself, but that it will calm down a little bit. Kind of like Mark said, because it's really the only one that's such an outlandish file size, it hasn't really affected me because I play the exact same amount of Call of Duty as I always do, which is none. But it has been a constant source of sympathy towards Barry this year when I see the screenshots of the patch sizes for this thing. It's crazy.
And it has discouraged me from, like, I uninstalled Warzone Again, when I was getting Cyberpunk, which is ironic, but I was just like, I can't justify this. It's just crazy. And it's like, some studios are actually showing like really positive signs of like, no, we're gonna work to get this to where it needs to be. Like I say, like Watch Dogs is very reasonable. The most like low-key impressive feature of the new consoles is smart delivery on the Series S, where games are actually coming in smaller than basically any other machine you can play them on, because like I think Ori is down from like 17 gigs to 10 on the Series S because it doesn't have the 4K textures. Like Sea of Thieves is something crazy, like 45 down to 17. Like, it's crazy. Like, there is honestly work being done by the industry. So I think that's back to Mark's point. COD gets a special mention for seemingly just not bothering their arses.
Yeah, I think Like a Dragon, which like I said, I'm downloading now, is something ridiculous, like 23 gigs for a brand new game, which is crazy. But yeah, I think, like you said, it is outrageous and it is worth mentioning, but I don't think it hangs with some of the more egregious
horrible
missteps
stuff
here this year.
Yeah, 100%.
Next up to the plate, Mark Robinson.
So I'll keep this easy. I put it on. I'm going to take it off. The Game Gear Micro.
Ooh, take it off.
Right, look. I love it. I love a good handheld console. I like being able to just have something I can play on the bus or whatever. But to enjoy a handheld console, I need to be able to actually see what's on the screen. I don't know if Sega, like, they saw the original Game Gear and the complaints from back in the day that, you know, handheld is a bit of a loose term for what is essentially a brick. But they went so far in the other direction to this thing that, like, I haven't physically held one, but, you know, looking at everything about what people talk about of how big the PS5 is and comparing it to different things, I can see how big a PS5 is. I can see how small the Game Gear Micro is, and it is completely unplayable for how small it is. And, you know, I haven't seen any kind of sales reports about how well it's done, but I have to imagine it's not that great. And basically, I saw it on Twitter one day, and then I never heard anything about it again. So, the Game Gear Micro, rest in power, I guess.
The other thing about it that really irked me when I was looking into it, apart from the fact that it's a console for ants, is that apparently you get 5 games on it, but there are 4 different Game Gears you can collect that have different variations of games on it. Yeah.
5 different Game Gears.
No, I thought it was 4 different Game Gears with 5 games.
It's 5 different Game Gears with 4 games.
Oh, okay.
Well,
so it's a $250 outlay to get these tiny consoles and all the games.
That is astonishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fucking absurd. But you know, there really are worse things, and things that have been around longer in the news and have like longer ramifications. And you know, this is just a blip on the radar, like a tiny blip on the radar.
Next up is Barry.
I put on one here that is similar to these last two. Just I don't think it really hangs with some of the terrible stuff on here. 505 and Control. Very frustrating, especially as time has, all of us who complained about that when it happened, time has bore us out as the ones, because I'll go back to Watch Dogs again. I don't especially love Watch Dogs Legion, but it does some cool stuff. I pop that disc in. It's a PS4 disc. I just get the game. Not just it runs backwards compatible. I get the free PS5 game. Same with Cyberpunk. Same with like basically anything. I mean, the first signs when these consoles were announced were a little rough. It looked like sports games were gonna go, buy a separate title, separate prices, blah, blah, blah. But other than that, across the board, it seems like if we are making 2 SKUs of a game, if you buy an old one, you get the new one. And 505, for anyone who doesn't know, I know if you're a listener to this show, you guys have talked about it quite a bit. You have to buy the Ultimate Edition of Control to get the next-gen upgrade for Series X or PS5. And the Ultimate Edition is basically just the base game and 2 DLC packs with this upgrade thrown in as the cherry on top. Owning the game and owning the DLC separately does not get you the upgrade. You have to pay 40 quid to buy the game again. And I love Control. We talked about Control a lot.
That was probably my game of the year last year.
I would love because it was really spotty on the old consoles.
Yeah.
And I saw it on Game Pass, like the regular non-Ultimate Edition on Game Pass. I still have my disc for the PS5. And I was like, I would love to play this game again.
I'll tell you what,
crisp.
it runs buttery smooth. That last gen version on Series S. I downloaded it just to have a look, and it looks real good.
Well, that's at the very least that is good. At least, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if it could even get the performance up, that would be fine. Yeah. But it's just you know, it's. And it was the Ultimate Edition was on sale on Black Friday for like 20 quid, which is very reasonable. But like on a moral level, I was like, no, this is so wrong. This is so unfair. And it annoys me for two reasons. One, it's not the standard. That's the one thing. But the other thing is, this game was busted when it launched on old consoles. How can you have the cheek to turn around and ask players to re-buy your game that even after all the patches, it ran better, but it was not silky smooth on PS4 when it was all said and done.
Yeah, it was good on Pro, but like I haven't seen anyone with a base PS4 say it ran good for them. My mark for how bad this whole thing was that FIFA has a better upgrade policy. And when EA Sports aren't mining people for as much money as you are, you need to take a fucking long, hard look at yourself. FIFA are doing the free next-gen upgrade, no problem at all. Once you own the PS4 version, you own the PS5 version. So if you're being more greedy than EA Sports, inventors of Ultimate Team, then you have a real fucking problem. But I'll say there's a few things on this list I would have higher as well, so I won't dispute that being taken out. Right, my turn now, and I think now we're already down to the real kind of take up an entire news cycle by themselves stories here. By virtue of the fact that I put this on, and that I don't think it might finish higher, but I don't think it's going to finish number one compared to some of these, I'm going to take the Avengers off. Because like there's a lot of gross marketing and shit like that around it, like all the brand deals they were doing and the amount of different things you would have to do to try and be a completionist, have to sign up for this service and that service in the States, and there was exclusive costumes based on what phone provider you had in the US, and
Verizon and Virgin.
Yeah, all that stuff is real gross. I don't think it's so much grosser than stuff we've seen before in some ways, and I think it wouldn't have become as big a deal if the game didn't come out and was just like aggressively average. I think people were gone, oh, it's just another one of those cash grabby sort of things. I don't think it's exceptionally egregious for the very low bar the games industry has set, so that's the one I'll go for.
I think the marketing and everything, I think all of that is just exasperated by how bang average the game is.
Yeah.
I do agree that, like, in general, the marketing, while disgusting and gross and whatever, is also, like, it's kind of just, it's peak of what to expect from a sort of AAA game, you know, that is, especially when you've got the fact that it has an IP like the Avengers behind it. It actually shouldn't really come as a surprise that you're seeing all of this stuff, whether it be costume packs if you buy the Verizon package or whatever. Like, none of that does really come as a surprise. But I just think it's the fact that it's bolted onto this average at best video game that is what really highlights all of this.
Well, when they announced it not as a game but as a live service, like experience. You know, this is being touted. It's quite clear from day one. It's like, right, so we'll put together like a half-assed story, and then we'll just keep dropping content for all the people that are absolutely going to stay with this game. And they did not stay with the game, and
which is funny because the actual only like positive I took from it was that I actually think the single player is alright.
Yeah, but like, there's just not a lot of it.
Yeah, that's it. It's too short. Like, it's well written, but it's too short. But we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, they offered. You're talking about the Verizon and Virgin. They also offered an in-game emote packaged with some gum, which is like. It's up there with
Gamer Fuel.
Yeah, it's up there with some weird shit that I've seen this year. Probably the weirdest one I saw was Cloud on a Baxter's noodle box, which was pretty strange. But yeah,
I think my brass ring is still the Battlefield onesie.
Sorry?
Remember, the Battlefield onesie is still my brass ring for.
I see. Yeah. I mean, that is, it's pretty good. Do you know the funny thing
mourn the dead from the Somme with this comfortable onesie this Christmas.
Oh my god, is that the tagline or your tagline?
I wish.
There's this specific cycle that happens with these games as a live service games where you have all the hype behind it, then the game comes out and you quickly realize that there's like really not a lot going on there, and you get all of the negative criticism, whatever, and then maybe 2 weeks to a month later you get a statement from whatever kind of creative director, whoever's behind it, saying that we hear all of your feedback and we understand that the game is not where we want it to be, and we've got this roadmap for the next year. And it's the same fucking thing every single time. It happened with the original Destiny, it happened with the Division,
the sequel to Destiny,
it happened with Anthem, and Anthem is really like the standard bearer of just a game just going to shit and never actually recovering from it. Because granted, Destiny and the Division managed to stick around, but it's so tiresome to see the same fucking cycle for these games.
And funnily enough, with all that money that they spent marketing this thing and promoting it and all that, as of 3 weeks ago, they still hadn't made back the development cost of the game.
Yeah. We're coming back around again to the top, and since we started this cycle, Jack has seen his beloved Chelsea beaten, so he's going to be absolutely bloodless with who he takes off in this round.
I mean, really? Did you have to do that?
I absolutely had to, yeah.
I am now furious at you. But that's what Game of the Year is about. It's about arguing with your friends. Okay, so of the stuff we have left, I'm going to take something off here, and it's mainly because the sins of this particular individual, which I will cover briefly before I allow you gentlemen to jump in. The worst shit that he did was last year. The worst, most egregious shit that this person committed was last year. This year, still a dickhead, still has really questionable morals and just an absolutely disgusting amount of greed as a human. But I'm going to take off Bobby Kottick from this here. Now,
I thought you were going for the other biggie here on the list for similar reasons.
No, I'm not, because I think that guy, I don't know what it is about him, he just irritates me even more. Bobby Kottick, it was announced this year that he earns 306 times more than the average employee at Activision, which is
took a 30 million base pay in financial year 2019.
Yeah, so 90% of his earnings from Activision are over target. So he is getting all of the profits that Activision are making hand over fist in the form of bonuses. And obviously last year is the year really, because 800 staff got laid off while they were taking $7 billion in revenue, and that is the disgusting element. But this year, the shareholders pushed back, They kind of released a statement and they were like, why is this fucking guy earning so much money? It's absurd. And then Activision released a really bedway statement where they're like, well, he's made all this profit for us, and and it was like, oh, this is disgusting. It was clearly written, it was dictated by Bobby Kottick to somebody that worked at Activision, and then they had to, with a straight face, release it as a press statement. Which is just awful. And the worst fucking business practice about Activision that gets me every time, and I don't know what the figure for 2019 was, but in 2018, they actually received a tax refund because they funnel all their tax through the Netherlands, right? So as a business operating in America, they're eligible for tax refunds, and they took $243 million out of the US Treasury in tax refunds in 2018, which is sickening. It's like people are paying for this company to exist in America while Bobby Kottick is the one on top taking all of the money, and he is not absolutely respreading it and redistributing it among the people that make his games, which sickens me. but they didn't lay anyone off this year. I suppose that makes him, like, for his standards, not as bad of a year by comparison. Thoughts, guys?
I mean, I don't know what you like, how you want to look at it, but Bobby Kottick is kind of the quintessential example of trickle-down economics not working.
Yep. He's a billionaire, like a literal billionaire. Like, he doesn't need to make any money from Activision. Like, if he gave all of that money to, I don't know, any charity that you can think of, you know, Dogs Trust or something, you know, so they don't incinerate dogs who've been given into homes, it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to him. And if you're a billionaire, just on interest alone, you're earning more money a year than you could possibly spend, without even mentioning the massive Smaug-like pile of a fortune that he's sitting on.
Is it maybe worth commenting on the fact that, like, it's 2020 and, you know, like, it's of all the years, you know, 2020 is a rough year for a lot of people. And yeah, I guess if you're saying that Activision didn't lay anyone off, then, I don't know. I can't say I'm fully comfortable with him coming off until, you know, I could see him easily as a top 3, but then at the same time, maybe it's just like Kottick is just a snapshot of economics in general, and, you know, like, he's just one example. It's not like a singular case of this.
No.
That's the issue.
And also, he has the intelligence, if you want to call it that, some would call it weaselly bastard nature, to stay away from the public limelight, to stay off Twitter, and to do all of his business in the shadows, as many, many rich people in America who are a similar level to Bobby Kottick at companies and who make a lot of money do. They do their business in the shadows and they're very quiet. They are the silent, disgustingly wealthy majority in terms of the cash. But yeah, I fuck this guy, but there's stuff in this category that irritates me more, unless anyone wants to make an impassioned plea to save Bobby or, you know, not bury him even more than we have.
I think you've done a good job of summarizing why he's nominated, and yeah, as Mark said, a representation of why that model of doing things just does not work. He's one of 2 nominees on this list where it's like, this individual is bad, but it does structural shit here that badly needs to change. But yeah, I think he's been given a fair dressing down. But I think I'm happy for him to be caught here as well.
Cool.
Okay. So,
Dave, was that enough anger, Chelsea anger, and the passion,
vitriol
of me cutting that promo on Kottick? If anything, I would have chosen him just so I could fucking lay into the son of a...
Yeah, I thought you were going to accidentally call him Pedro Neto or something there while you were talking. Such was the venom.
See, the thing about Daniel Potence is, right?
Marco.
Oh, boy. Boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. I'm struggling to pick between the 5 that we have left, honestly. Man alive. Because these all suck for, like, a number of different reasons, between people being trash and ineptitude. I don't know. I guess do we talk about Randy Pitchford now and, like, explain why he's on for, like, the 4th fucking year running or whatever it is at this point?
I was going to ask, actually, what is he, we've talked about him every year that I've been on this show, I feel. But what exactly are his 2020 grievances?
The big one this year was the year he did the bait and switch with the bonuses for everyone on Borderlands 3.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
That's why I said Bobby Kottick wins, just because he didn't, in public anyway, commit any grievous offences against his staff, whereas fucking Pitchford, my word. Dave, take us through it if you've got the detail there.
I don't have the exact details in front of me.
I do.
Okay.
Well, I have general details. So, like, fucking Pitchford, right?
I'm just going to sit back. All right, go on.
The way that Borderlands 2 operated is that he pays all of his staff lower than the industry base rate, with the idea that once the game comes out and it does well, which all Borderlands games have up to this point, people earn a massive bonus, like a big over-target earnings. There were people that were high up taking over 100k from the last one in bonuses.
And as Jim Sterling pointed out in talking about this whole fiasco, that is an incredible incentive and financial package for staff when everything is working.
Yes, it is.
But when it breaks down, it's only the underlings get fucked and not Randy.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if people are new to the company, they're like, oh, cool, yeah, I'm going to work hard towards this point. I mean, there's nothing...
People were buying houses and cars.
These are the people that have been there for the Borderlands 2. They knew how much money was coming. So they were like, right, I'm fucking safe, I can go out, I can spend
and
this
they were
money.
told loads of money was coming
They
as well.
They were promised.
It wasn't just that they expected it. They were told to expect it.
Yeah, and it did not happen. The dev costs of the game overran, and they spent way too much money, and they had to rebuild critical parts of the game, bringing in other people, which costs more money.
Yeah.
And
they had to... they didn't reveal to their underlings that Randy and the higher-ups at Gearbox had signed a deal with 2K that specified that they wouldn't see penny one from Borderlands 3 until the game made back its entire development cost, including marketing.
Which it took a very long time for it to do, funnily enough, because Borderlands 3 didn't sell as well as Borderlands 2.
And if I'm not mistaken, they had already gotten out of the financial year before they started to see a return.
Yep. So none of that money was coming their way. And you know what? This is why I hate this guy. I might hate Bobby Kottick more if I had more access to him being just a slag. This is the only word that I can think of.
A slag.
Right.
Oh, what a thing to shout out as we. Oh my God.
Okay.
Them slags that did 9/11.
Pitchford. Right. I'm gonna go full fucking diary. Pitchford is one of the most infuriatingly disgusting twat human beings you can find. And his comment was just like, well, if people don't like the terms that I'm laying down, they can go work somewhere else. You just fucked hundreds of people out of literally thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars and then told them to go work somewhere else when they've been working for less than industry standard for an entire year and a half or whatever. Fuck Randy Pitchford. He is a slag, and Danny Dyer should drop his fucking balls on him.
Now,
so here's my unless anyone has any kind of further things.
I was just going to say, if you ever needed to know the measure of the man, Randy Pitchford, he is still locked in what is now a years-long lawsuit with his own former lawyer.
Oh yeah,
yes, which I think was what he was nominated for among several other things last year.
I mean, the chief thing last year, I think, was the
key drive,
the key drive of potentially underage porn left in the medieval times, and fist fighting a former voice actor.
Oh yeah,
so here's my thing.
He fought the lead actor of his own game. Can't make this shit up.
Here's my my potential compromise, because there are two things on here. One that affects studios and developers, like from multiple different studios. There's not just one studio affected. And there's one that's more on the consumer side that I think is worth really discussing. I think I'm ready at this point that maybe Randy doesn't win this, but I do think he's at the point that he should be in the title of this award.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, because Konami have they haven't really...
They're not really a video game company anymore.
They haven't been extra strength douchebags for a while now.
We can come back to Konami when that Metal Gear film comes out.
Oh yeah,
we can bring it back for discussion.
But the thing is,
like, they haven't done anything this year.
If it becomes official that they are doing Silent Hills with Kojima and that inevitably goes tits up, then maybe we can bring them back into the fold.
Yeah, but this could be the Pitchford, this award, and I'd be quite happy with that.
Cool. So he's not winning, but we'll rename the award after him in 2021. Seems
he's
like
our
a fair
Ric Flair.
Right, who's next? Who just went?
That was me.
That was you. So it's Barry next.
I just renamed a category, so my work here is done.
Yeah.
Righty. Yeah, we're getting down to brass tacks here. I will say again, probably could have gone earlier because it was bad, but kind of like the Control thing and the COD thing. I would say the next gen pre-order debacle could go. Maybe Mark really wants to stick to them.
Yeah, if anyone's going to cut a promo here.
I would say even as a blessed man who eventually got both. I will say it was very awkward. It's kind of surprising in this day and age with all our innovations in online banking and retail and all this other stuff that like these major corporations and their websites can't handle the traffic. They can't communicate ahead of time how many they're going to have. They can't develop like non-terrible queue systems. It was a disaster. Sony's in particular. Sony's pre-orders just going up after the reveal event unceremoniously, where people were saying, wait, what? Oh, Jeff Keighley said they're up. Wait, no, he's not supposed to say it. Oh, no, Demon's Souls, well, no, it's not on the PC. Wait, the pre-orders, you said. No, go back to the pre-orders. Like, that whole mess was ridiculous. And then Xbox coming out and saying, we're gonna tell you when our pre-orders are coming up. It's gonna be easy. And then theirs was a mess. All their websites were going down. Like, it was bad, but I also kind of think this is a non-gaming problem. I feel like this is just a modern retail commerce problem, slightly exasperated by COVID, I would admit. But some great writings being done, because obviously we have all the scalping issues as well. Some great writing was being done by I actually can't remember the outlet. I think it might have been Bloomberg or Business Insider, I think it was, about how the sneaker and phone scalping people are now getting in on the console racket. So Microsoft and Sony fucked up. They deserve lamenting. I also feel like the systems in place are just bad. They are just bad, and it's not necessarily just their fault. So I don't think they should win, but they should be mildly scorned nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, even they admitted. I think Phil Spencer came out and was just like, "Yeah, we had our pants pulled down massively by this."
He not only admitted it, but he also admitted it on behalf of Sony.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's like, "I've been chatting to my pals at Sony."
Jim Ryan thinks we fucked it as well.
And Xbox have been like genuinely, sincerely proactive over the last 6 years of looking at shit that doesn't work and why doesn't it work and let's fix it. And they deserve all the credit in the world from turning things around where they were. So if, and like you said, Phil Spencer has been out there saying this did not work. And he said, maybe we need to have assigned slots. Maybe we need to do this. We need to do that. So we've got 8 or 9 years to figure this out. I actually am mildly confident they will try something new. But yeah, I also think some of the blame should go on Amazon and Walmart and Smiths and all these other sites that just struggled to get their shit.
Yeah, I think some sites.
I potentially.
Sorry. Go on, Mark.
Sorry, Jack. You first.
I was going to say, I think some sites just chucked it up as well. Like, you mentioned it being up to Jeff Keighley, Barry, to announce that Sony's pre-orders were up. Also, Sony had a weird thing where they were, like, making people apply to be able to get an invitation to pre-order as well.
Oh,
which I was going back through the whole timeline, like, in reverse, and I got to that point, and I was like, man, so they're going to decide whether I'm eligible to pre-order a PS5? What the fuck is that shit? But yeah, some retailers just stuck it up there, and the only reason I got my PS5 was because 2 months before or whatever, when the pre-orders came out, it just happened to be out on Twitter. Like, Amazon are putting their PS5s up at 9:00, but they didn't put it out like on their official Twitter account or anything. Somebody like that was on Jelly Deals or some information just got out, and it was all like kind of rumors. And that episode of South Park where they're going to find the internets around California way, that was kind of what it was like with the PS5 for a while.
Honestly, I think that's how everyone does it now. Everyone's just got Jelly Deals and IGN deals and Digital Foundry deals, and that's how everyone knows now when something goes online live and at what time.
Yeah, everyone.
Problem is you get that information a minute after everyone's already bought it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is farcical as well, because the PS5 is it's not a gamer nerd thing. It's a general pop culture thing. I have had friends come out of the woodwork in general, but then also after they heard I got one, saying, how do I get a PS5? What do I do? How did you get it? Where did you get it? And the thing is, like, I know that they're not like me. And it's like, I can give you the information, but I know you're not going to sit on Wario64's Twitter all day like I did. or on the Digital Foundry Deals Twitter like I did. Like, and that's the thing, it's like, it's these are all like niche nerd websites. Like it's, we found it tough, and we know these sites and we know these searches. Like how the hell does like average Joe stand a chance when the main channels of communication are so
I tell you how Mark
you know?
gets one. What he does is he befriends Sinbad in a cafe, and then they spend the best part of an hour having a tete-a-tete, and then ultimately he dresses up like a PS5 to rescue his son, and then his son gives the PS5 to Sinbad at the end. But you know what? It's all about the journey that him and his son went on.
I forgot as well. I forgot to mention at the start of the show that I actually had a PS5 for an hour. That's what's even worse.
I was surprised you didn't tell that story on the show last week.
I forgot. I think I've suppressed it to the back of my mind, but I actually fucking had one for an hour.
That's great.
I could
I could have had this actually higher on my own personal list, but I do think there are enough compelling points here.
I wonder why, Mark. Is there any deep feeling there?
And I do think there's at least one thing that's left that is like way worse.
Same.
So
was it Game, Mark? Game were the ones who fucked you?
Yes, and in fairness, I gamed the system because when I finally, after an hour and 20 minutes of waiting to get through, I went to like purchase or put it into my checkouts, and they said, and I put, trying to put those in from Ireland, and there was like, we will not ship to this address. So I then had to use a VPN to get through to actually buy it, and then I was going to ship it to Parcel Motel, and I had to use Jack's phone number, and then in an hour's time they detected whatever irregularity and went, see, we can't give you the exact reason we can't send one to you, but here's a list of reasons why. And one of them was like fake email addresses or whatever.
Here's the reason. They rung me up and they were like, do you really want this PS5? I was like, nah, you fucking stick it, mate. Stick it up your Jacksy game. What of this? Do you know why as well? What I've heard, two things about the Parcel Motel thing. I've been hearing that obviously there's been a lot of kind of bots and stuff that have been, programmed to macro through and buy PlayStations. People within countries are setting up multiple Parcel Motel addresses all forwarding to their own address so they can buy multiple instances of the PS5. So then that's how somebody could get 10, say, for instance, if they were going to do it that way. And also the parcel like motel like locations and things like that I've heard have been some of the places that have been targeted for people that are trying to steal these PS5s. So
well, I have it so it gets delivered straight to my address. So it goes basically from the sorting office in Dublin to me instead of going to like the actual lockers. But anyway, this is way off point. It can come off the list. Let's move on.
So we have 3 left, and I think because they're on such a similar level of exceptional horror, I think we just go to a vote.
We'll talk a bit through, and then we can vote it out.
So what we have left is, firstly, we have GameStop, who ran a TikTok competition for employees in North America to have the privilege to work Black Friday. Which I think that's pretty much does all it says on the tin, and I'm very glad that traditional games retailers are dying if that's what they're going to do. Then we have what is kind of 2 stories folded into one, which is The Last of Us 2, the trolling happening from people who are very disgusted about how the game's narrative was laid out, among other things, and then also the like biblical level of thin-skinned responses from the director of the game and some of the cast in response to actual criticism of the game. And I feel the person best placed to run us through that one is Barry.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the 2 biggest games of the year, Last of Us and Cyberpunk. I mean, they have been the all-conquering, hellish discourse games of the year. I mean, the timeline of Last of Us 2 was, it was this hotly anticipated thing. There was leaks a couple of months before it came out, which I successfully avoided the leaks for obvious reasons. I did not want to know. I got the vague sense people were annoyed, but I was blacklisting the terms and ad blocking them and stuff like that so that I wouldn't come across them. But basically, people got disgusted by what they felt were, shocking storyline twists that they didn't approve of, supposed political agendas in the game that they didn't approve of. And so that led to this big pre-release, oh, this is going to be dog shit, this is going to be the worst thing ever, blah, 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 blah. The game comes out, it's, mostly very well received, but on user scores on Metacritic, it gets review bombed for the previously mentioned reasons. It did, the previously mentioned, political aspect of the game where some people felt like it was pushing, progressive ideology, blah, 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 blah. It did become something of a de facto culture war game of the season. And so all that was going on, and a lot of people were then also enjoying the game. There were a couple of high-profile reviewers who, for non-bigoted, perfectly legitimate reasons, did not like it. It was very long. People thought it was overly pessimistic or nihilistic, even. It was extremely violent. There were, again, chud based grievances with the story from some people. Again, I loved it, but I thought there was a lot of very well-reasoned, well-argued criticism of it out there. The length seems to be a big sticking point, and that was one of the things that Troy Baker, who is one of the stars of the game, and he is one of the industry standard voice actors. He didn't take it very well, so he was lashing out at critics, doing that really shitty thing people do where they say, "Oh, what do critics know? It's all about creators. Creators are the ones who really matter," which is such a shitty thing for a respected industry leader to do. Neil Druckmann, who was both the source of legitimate and very horrible, unfair criticism. He also was taking swipes at critics and Jason Schreier and things like that, and that got very messy because Schreier was like, you don't like me. I wonder if that's to do with anything the fact that I reported on all the horrible crunch your studio does.
Can I just point out that at this point, Jason Schreier, the reason he finally got the ire of Neil Druckmann was because he pointed out the ridiculous nature of a critic who said that The Last of Us 2 was the Schindler's List of games.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like it's not only like there is so many layers to the Last of Us discourse story, and that is also things about it as well. As someone who loves the game, and I absolutely think it's fantastic.
The two of us talked for nearly 2 hours about it.
The two of us talked for hours about it.
Great podcast, by the way. Go back in the archive and listen to that. I'm gonna put these guys over right now. That was fucking awesome. That was one of my favorite things, critical analyses I had of the game. So well done, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. But yeah, it's the first game and the second one. It's people gushing about it. People, non-gaming people, talking about how it advances the gaming medium, which is my least favorite thing ever. I don't want to hear about how what's that Hollywood? Oh, I can't remember what the name of the magazine, but anytime a non-gaming magazine gushes about how this pushes the medium forward, which it doesn't. As much as I love it, it's not a genre-changing thing. It's not Schindler's List. It's not Citizen Kane. So you had all of that. You had the previously mentioned, bigoted outrage crew who hated the game because it had, trans representation, because it had 2 female protagonists, because it had XYZ. That didn't just go from user reviews. That then spilled over into horrible, disgusting, terrible abuse to both Neil Druckmann and also Laura Bailey, who was the voice of Abby. And so it was a mess because you had people like Druckmann, who was both being an arsehole, but at the same time you had to cut him some slack because he was getting shit on.
You did, in fact, have to hand it to him.
You did, in fact, have to hand it to him. And you had people going mental because for stupid reasons. You had people criticizing it for valid reasons, and this person was going insane, and it was at a certain point I was like, God damn, like what? Like this is just. It's just endless. I think Polygon. I think if you Google the phrase "Last of Us 2 discourse is a mess," they did a very excellent and very exhaustive just chronicling of this person's. Here's the first person who got mad. Here's the second person who got mad. Here's the third person, and it was never ever ever ending. And we kind of saw a little bit with Cyberpunk again. The Last of Us 2 issue in itself is very frustrating, but I also think it represents a wider issue, which is a massive lack of maturity in the games community, a lot of shitty attitudes by people in the industry, and a whole lot of broken things that can be seen there, and also the Cyberpunk thing. So that is the whole Last of Us 2 situation as concise as I could make it.
That was brilliant. Oh, and one tiny other thing. People got mad because Abby had muscles. Like,
Yes.
women can't have muscles.
Oh, people actually trying to argue what they quote unquote knew about women's physiology was my favorite of the shitty discourses.
Absolute clowns.
Our final thing that's up in the last three here, and I suppose Mark might have the most interesting perspective on this based on the fact that you've kind of been dipping your toes into what it actually takes to make a game, and that's the idea that an industry-wide practice of seemingly relentless crunch has continued, and I think, again, this is something that CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk and Naughty Dog with The Last of Us 2 dominated that discourse this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Me doing a 4-day game jam.
It's not quite the same. But
it's not quite the same, but I was still doing, I don't know, like 12 to 14 hour shifts, shall we say. And like by the end of it, I fucking like slept for 2 days and I just didn't want to move and I was exhausted. And, you know, imagine a whole development cycle doing that. And as we're seeing with Cyberpunk, that it doesn't just end when the game is finished. Like, you know, specifically with Cyberpunk, there is going to be God knows how many hours put into fixing and correcting that ship. And I think we're really like highlighting this, like, crunch does not make a good game. You know, smart project managers and smart, just, you know, having a clear vision over, you know, the course of 2 years, 3 years or whatever, you know, all of these things are what makes a good game. And just working your developers to the bone, you end up with, you know, the myriad of issues. And, you know, obviously Cyberpunk has more than just that. It was, you know, trying to be developed across like 9 different platforms and, you know, everything else. So it's not just the crunch that has created what, you know, the end product as of this moment is for Cyberpunk, but I really do feel that I feel crunch has been on our this specific category for at least a couple of years now, and I really feel that it's at the point where, you know, it's so apparent and it's so there that I do think that this is the year that, for me, I think this finally has to win.
This is Scorsese winning the Oscar for The Departed. It's finally their year.
I honestly, it's DiCaprio winning the Oscar. It's like, now's the time. Okay. Now is the fucking time.
Let's cast our votes in the order that we talked in this round. Jack.
Yeah, it's funny, when Mark started talking about crunch, in my head I had this whole idea of like, I could say that, you know, just based on all of the previous, and he's just made that point so beautifully for me that I've really just am hands off here. I'm gonna give it here. The one thing I have is a quote from Jonathan Cooper, who is one of the people at Naughty Dog, and this is just a little taste of how tough it was to get that project over. And he says, "The reason I left Naughty Dog is because I only want to work with the best, and that's no longer Naughty Dog. Their reputation for crunch within LA was so bad that it became near impossible to hire seasoned contract game animators, slowing progress down to close out the project, and as such we loaded up with film animators." So you've got a bunch of people that are helping to crunch this game who have no fucking idea probably what it's like to get everything in time. I don't know if this is a problem in the film industry. It's not something that I've heard it is as bad as a video game industry, but yeah, it makes me feel even worse for those people who are probably, you know, really decent animators who've come on to close out a different kind of project and walked into a world of shit. So yes, CD Projekt Red, Naughty Dog, and you know all the other ones that just aren't picking up the news for the crunch that they've put in, and I just think like the people that make these games, the things that we love, are always going to be the unsung heroes in this industry. So we should represent them by telling the companies that manage them to fucking sort their scheduling out and fuck right off if you're going to make somebody work 70 hours a week and just absolutely ruin their lives. So
the absolute slags.
The absolute slag men of them all. Get them off. And yeah, that's my winner.
Mark.
Yeah, crunch.
Much more succinct. I love it. Barry.
Yeah, it's got to be Crunch.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I
will say an honorable mention on GameStop's front.
That's what I was going to say. I forgot to bury that TikTok thing. You're making people dance to get people to work.
Oh yeah, fuck GameStop. But fuck GameStop. I'm more than happy to put that out there.
I was also going to say, like, because it's not just they were also in the news for declaring themselves an essential business.
Yeah.
At
Yes,
the very
they did.
beginning of the pandemic, which is like crappy. But again, kind of like the console pre-order thing. There was a lot of people doing that should not have been doing that. So
WWE.
But yeah, of course. So I wanted to just get that in there as I mentioned. But yeah, Crunch is easily the winner here.
Another thing about GameStop, do you remember they were also making their staff still take in second-hand games without providing them with any PPE? So you could just have a copy of a game someone's like sneezed and coughed on and just hands over to you in the store.
I wouldn't have wanted to handle games being traded in before the pandemic, to be honest.
And didn't they announce something within the last couple of days about you could go in and like collect the next gen console? I can't remember the exact specifics, but there was something they've done that they shouldn't be doing, considering, like current levels in America.
Yeah, I think they've showed that they have no shame in this whole operation.
Okay, so your winner for the 2020 Konami Korner Award, the last time it will be titled that for the foreseeable, is Boundless Levels of Crunch continuing at developers worldwide.
Whoop whoop. What was the fan vote? This is what we're all here for.
Oh, of course, yes. We go to what was the result of the fan vote here. So, for the Konami Korner Award, the winner with over 50%, with 51.9% of the vote to be exact, is Boundless Levels of Crunch continuing.
Hey!
I love the people that listen to this show 10 times more
We're
now.
all on the ball.
In second place with 25% was GameStop, by the way.
Absolutely love those guys.
All right.
Don't know if I mentioned
That'll
it.
probably be the last time we're all in agreement for the rest of the evening.
I mean, wasn't it last year where the audience were constantly dropping the elbow on Jack?
Yes, it was. Apart from the eventual winner, which I was just like, we made up. We had our issues, but we got there in the end.